All right, people are starting to pour in and we're at the top of the hour. So let's get the show on the road. Can you see my screen already? Did I share it already? No, here we go.
Oh, there you go. Now it's good.
Here we go. So it's Wednesday. How did that happen? I don't know about you guys, but this week has just been a complete blur for me. Here we are. Welcome back if you've been here before, and if not, welcome for your first Lunch Without Lunch experience. Hopefully it will be a great one for you. My name is Bridget Legault. I'm community manager down in Calgary, recovering from a bit of a cold and obviously having a fuzzy time here getting things going. I just wanted to make mention of Amber Rowden, our community storyteller, who's in the background helping out, and all of our Edmonton Rainforest Steering Committee members who can give a wave, and James will step in here in a moment to tell you more about the rainforest. But prior to doing so, I'd like to quickly acknowledge the lands that we live, work, and play on within Calgary. That is Treaty 7, the unceded territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, and the Métis Nation Region 3. And for those of you in Edmonton on Treaty 6, the unceded lands of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, as well as the Métis. So we acknowledge that these are sacred gathering places and we are guests on these lands and are incredibly grateful for that. So I'm going to pass it over to James, who will share more about what the rainforest is all about. But you can also follow along on our website if you have more questions about the rainforest. I'll throw it over to you, James.
Thanks, Bridget. Hi, everyone. James Kierstead. I'm with Rainforest Alberta, but also an entrepreneur like all of you. I'm up here in Edmonton and always love to connect with all of our friends down in Calgary. So the next slide.
Sorry, that's my cue. Here we go. play the video.
What does it take to realize an idea? Or for a seed to sprout? At Rainforest Alberta, we know the answer is rooted in trust. Traditionally, Albertans have cultivated their ideas in established systems. Inputs that don't fit these systems are weeded out. Opportunities for growth are missed. But now, Albertans want a dynamic landscape that can evolve organically, like a rainforest. At Rainforest Alberta, we believe a culture of trust is the fertile soil where ideas grow. Our budding innovation ecosystem is a network of relationships pulling each other up as they push forward in their own field. Trust breaks down barriers. An open, inclusive network increases collaborative innovation. Successful breakthroughs inspire new ideas. A cycle begins. Rainforest Alberta is a movement to amplify trust by cultivating honesty, inclusion, and accountability. How? Our social contract holds us accountable to demonstrate trust across the province. We meet to have honest conversations around collaboration. This leads to more inclusive spaces for everyone to fearlessly build new ideas together. By raising the standard of trust, Alberta's ideas, talent, and resources can be evergreen. Visit rainforestab.ca to sign the social contract and start growing together.
So we use 6 pillars to guide our conversations and actions. Not all weighted equally. Like any ecosystem, the right balance is crucial. These are measured each year through a scorecard assessment, and we're doing lots of work on it for this coming scorecard that will come out to everyone in the ecosystem. What we're measuring is culture, leaders, resources, engaged activities, policy and infrastructure, and role models. Next slide. So tips on making the lunch without lunch, the most of the lunch without lunch. Introduce yourself in the chat, connect with individuals through DMs, put your camera on. It's always nice to talk to a face instead of a black screen. Ask questions. Keep connecting on Rainforest's Slack workspace and check out the lunch notes for capture of what today's chat was all about. And we also post Lunch Without Lunch recordings on YouTube. And And I don't know if I have one last note is if you have a question or something, just out of respect for the people that are presenting or already talking, just raise your hand or pop it in the chat. That'll make it a lot easier. I will now turn it over to Bridget, who is going to introduce Serena to the group. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much, James. So yeah, today we have Serene here from Pixeltree. And so we're really excited about that. Is Daniel here today too? Daniel
I'm here. Hello,
yeah.
I'm lurking.
He's lurking in the background. One of my first lunch without lunch, I think, as community manager, maybe second, Daniel and I connected, and he was one of the first one-on-one meetings I had in the community. So it was great to see that he's now with Pixeltree, and he helped us queue up having Serene here today, because we always have a lot of career pivoters and new software developers in our community who are looking for work. And Serene is the technical director of Pixeltree, which is a Calgary software consultancy that is passionate about working with startup founders about software development and mentorship of that junior software developer talent. She has over 10 years of experience working with startup founders and even more experience as a developer. She founded Pixeltree with a vision to support the community in building a sustainable tech ecosystem. So like I mentioned, this is a hot topic. We talk about it often, the junior talent we have in the ecosystem and getting them meaningful work. And so excited to hear from you today, Serene. I will pass it over to you. We're going to make this as engaged of a conversation as possible, as we always do. So please share your thoughts in the chat or raise your hand and speak up, and we can chat back and forth. So I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Bridget. And thanks so much for having me here. I think I have this conversation about junior developers with a lot of people one-on-one. So it's great to kind of have a forum to talk to more people about it. So I have a bit of an intro, and then the rest of the talk, I'm hoping to have more of an open discussion. I have a few things I want to talk about, but if you have questions, raise your hand or interrupt me. I'd prefer for it to just be a bit more engaging than me talking at you, especially since I'm at home alone. It seems a little weird to be talking on my computer, but that's all right. I'll just stare at Jade. Jade's beard will keep me grounded. So who am I? I am a single mom of 2 boys. They are 8 and 10, and I found that being a mom has been instrumental in shaping who I am as a leader and a mentor. I see my role with my kids and my team as one where I provide the guardrails and I help them to set goals, but they are free to decide how to get there. So, I moved to Calgary when I was 17 to go to university for computer science. My family was pretty poor, so I did the student loan thing and I worked for minimum wage, $6 an hour at the university in temp positions, anywhere I could get them really, in order to get through university as fast as possible. I did spring and summer courses, and I took 6 courses per semester for my final year. I graduated with a 3.7 GPA, and I still had a tough time finding a job. I had no money. It was a pretty rough time. I remember crying a lot. I remember I went to one of my professors and I said, you know, I can't find a job. I have good grades. I did everything that I was supposed to do, and I can't find a job. And she recommended me for a job at the company where her husband worked at. And I jumped at that opportunity. So some of you may know Larry Schumlich. He was my first hiring manager. And he insisted that the team hired junior developers. They took 3 of us, and it was a huge team of 60 devs, and he insisted we're going to hire at least 3. And not all the senior devs were happy to have the juniors on the team, but because it was a very high profile, well-funded oil and gas project back in 2006. It was a very, very challenging job, but I had some really amazing mentors on that team, and they taught me a lot about what I know today. I was very fortunate to have that opportunity. I know that opportunity, a lot of people don't have that opportunity at all. So in the years following my divorce, I took a full-time position as director of technology for a subprime auto financing company. I helped them to build the MVP of their product, and then I helped them to grow the company. I led the technical team there and advised the board of directors. I left that company at the end of 2019. While I was there, I noticed a decrease in community involvement in the tech community here, and also a lack of strong technical leaders in the startup scene. So I left that company, and it encouraged me to restart Pixeltree. And so at Pixeltree, as Bridget mentioned, we have two main goals. One is to train and mentor junior developers, and two, to help startup founders to build their tech. My goal for this meeting today is to open up discussion around the challenges surrounding junior developers. I have a bunch of notes and things I want to touch on, but feel free to interrupt me at any time, send questions in chat as you think of them, and I'll try to address them as we go. I also have quite a few members of my team here who are really interested in hearing the talk today. So I'm sure they can help answer some of the questions as well for things that I miss. And so I think Calgary has a pipeline issue with software developers. We have a limited supply of intermediate and senior devs, and it's getting really difficult to compete with more well-funded companies for that limited resources. And I think that it's our job as a community to refill that pipeline. There are cities like Waterloo where companies are competing to hire students fresh out of school. And so it's not an issue with the quality of people coming out of school because other cities are doing it. So how do they do it? How can we learn from that and do it? And I want to remove the stigma of hiring junior developers by showing companies that it's not just important to hire them to refill the pipeline, and it's not just an altruistic thing for us to do, but it's actually more profitable to do so. Because experienced developers are grown. They are not manifested out of nowhere. They are not congealed in a lab. They need to be trained, and not all senior developers are created equal. And so when I think about it and things I've heard, people tell me about why they don't hire junior developers is they say it's really hard to onboard them onto a project. So we're going to chat about that a little bit. And I find that junior devs struggle in three main places. One, when they're the only person on the project and they have no one to ask questions to. Two, onboarding into a complex project where there's just a whole bunch of new stuff to learn. And three, which is tech that they don't know. But when we really start to think about it, this is actually true of developers of all experience levels. Any single developer, regardless of experience, struggles when they're the only person on a project. They have to wear a lot of hats. They have to know everything about software development, not just programming. And years of experience does not directly translate into their ability. Just being in software for 10 years does not make you suddenly an expert in technology. So, and onboarding onto a complex project, this is a struggle for everybody. It's not a junior dev problem. Senior devs have that problem as well. There's always going to be churn for a developer joining a new project. As for new tech is always changing. It's always going to change. We all always have to learn new tech. Junior, intermediate, senior. This is just the way. We are always going to have to learn new tech. And so when we think about it that way, junior developers aren't really that much different than senior developers. And if you say that your project is too complex for junior developers to join, I'm willing to bet that it's because your processes are a bit too complex, and there's actually some room for simplification. If you worry that the juniors are going to break things in your project, then you probably don't have enough checks in place, because even senior developers are human. We make mistakes too. And so we need to have those checks in place, and those checks need to improve. So we have a pretty curated onboarding process at Pixeltree that's grown over the last couple of years. So Carolina's here. She was our first hire into Pixeltree, one of our two first hires. And when I first hired her, we didn't have any onboarding in place. And now when new developers join our team, they go through an onboarding process. We have everything documented. This gives them all the information they need to get their laptop set up and projects running. Part of this onboarding process is for them to improve the onboarding process. Was there anything missing in that onboarding process that they had to go and ask for or Google? Add it to the documentation. Was there anything you found that was inefficient? Change it. And so our metric now for onboarding juniors is what we call time to first pull request. So that's the time it takes a new developer to contribute a valuable chunk of code to a project. Our most recent hire, who started at the beginning of October, was able to do this within his first day. And this is a huge deal. He came out of Lighthouse Labs bootcamp, got a job with us. He was able to set up his laptop, get his projects set up. He had a task that was ready to go, and he was able to fix a bug. It's a huge deal. It greatly reduces our key person risk, and just it increases the pool of people that we can hire from. Oh, hot take. A company throwing up their hands and saying it's impossible for us to hire juniors makes me a little bit fearful for the future of the company. If your project is so inaccessible that you can only work with senior developers, your long-term success is it's going to be quite challenging. You will forever be competing with Silicon Valley resources that can always pay more than you can. And when you lose people from your team, the complexity of the code will make the whole team feel that loss. If you don't have room for juniors, you're not thinking about your project long-term. That's my hot take. It wasn't really that hot after all. So I think that getting great juniors actually starts from education. So I have injected myself into curriculum development with State and Bow Valley College to ensure that the education people are getting aligns with the actual needs of industry. And so if you have a private company, I'd really encourage you to reach out and get involved. They love hearing from the private sector because they're always trying to figure out what it is that they need to do to make their students more employable. So just reach out. Internships, hire interns, try them out, pay them. I cannot say this enough. Pay your interns. They provide value to your company and they deserve to be compensated appropriately. Give them an opportunity to learn about your company and it gives your company an opportunity to learn about them. Take some time to understand what your company is about. Step back and check in with your company's why and be able to articulate it. Figure out what culture you have in your company with open eyes and what culture you actually want, and be able to articulate it and write it down. When people ask you about it in interviews, you should be able to tell them what your company is about. Not what product you produce or how much money you make, but what's your company about? What is the experience like? What value are you providing to the world? Why are you doing what you do? Because it's got to be more than the bottom line. It is for me anyway. Interview mindfully. Interviewing is a skill. So take some time to learn about how to interview. What questions are you asking and why are you asking them? When they give you an answer, how do you know if that's what you're looking for? What reactions are you looking for? There are lots of books about interviewing, and I encourage you to seek them out. If you have coding challenges, what are you looking for in those coding challenges? Are they things that can be taught? Are you like, what is it that you're trying to get from these coding challenges? I find a lot of junior developers are doing coding challenges that are hours long. They don't know what the company's looking for. Are you just seeing if people can Google some code syntax? Because that's not super helpful. And so I guess hiring juniors doesn't actually need to be a solely altruistic activity. It's a profitable one for your company, and it's the only way to ensure that we have a sustainable pipeline in Calgary. Because I think Calgary has a lot of the pieces that we need to be a really, really thriving tech hub. And if everybody can kind of get on board with doing their piece, I think I really strongly believe that we can be the Silicon Valley of Canada. That's kind of all I had prepped. Love to hear about other people, and don't hold back. I want you to ask me anything you have.
Awesome. Thanks, Serene. That's so the essence of rainforest. So it's, yeah, when I first heard about what you were doing, I just thought, oh my gosh, this is incredibly related to our audience, but also just the culture of what rainforest is all about. So it's incredible. And I know there
I
are
love
others
Aaron's
doing
question, Bridget.
Yeah, let's go there. So Aaron asked, maybe feel free to unmute Aaron if you just want to ask, and we can converse back and forth. Not to put you on the spot, but if you can.
No, that's fine. Thanks for the presentation. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm not a developer. I'm not part of that team, but as a leader within the organization, I'm curious what tools or what I can say to help the dev team consider more junior people. As it has been so far, we've only been considering senior devs. We've been lucky and we've been able to find some, but as we grow out the team, we need to be a little more open-minded. So please help.
Yeah, I think I would have a conversation with them about what their feelings are and what the blockers they think are there to stop them from hiring junior devs, and really understand what those fears are.
What I've heard from them is largely as senior devs, they don't feel that they have the time to mentor or coach more junior people. Generally, that's the pushback.
Yeah, that's a challenging one. I think we need to change that attitude, because I don't think that that's acceptable. Sorry.
No, I tend to agree.
Yeah, I don't think that that's acceptable. On our team, everybody has a mentorship role, juniors and seniors alike. I've been a programmer for 15 years, and I still have tons to learn, and I ask for help from the juniors as well, because they're closer to some of the new tech, and I ask for help. And so I think you have to grow that culture of helping each other. Juniors don't take as much time as people seem to think that they take.
Yeah, my impression, at least for us, and I don't know if this is true generally, is that it's not so much that they don't have time, the senior devs on our team, it's more that they don't have an inclination towards coaching and mentoring others. They don't want to do it, or they don't feel like they're skilled in doing it. And I'm wondering if there's a different way to help juniors come up that doesn't require people who don't like coaching or don't want to mentor.
I don't think so. I think part of the success that we have on our team with the juniors is that the juniors don't get treated any differently than the seniors. We are all just humans, and we're all just learning, and we help each other out whenever we can. We're all working towards a common goal, and it doesn't matter your seniority level, whether you are doing data architecture, or you're fixing a bug, or you're doing security updates. Everybody is contributing to the project. And I think that having that kind of culture, it sounds like there are some culture changes there that would need to happen in the organization.
Definitely a lot of chatter about organizational culture, and that being the root of perhaps that challenge. And I know Alan works a bit in that world and has his hand up. Alan, you want to contribute?
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right track with the whole culture piece, because I think that right now, there's always a focus on some of the current issues, and the current issues that, that are obviously very prevalent are the whole BIPOC issue. So, so I think that we all need to understand that also ageism is sort of a thing that exists out there as well. There's a certain thing that people push about older people, and there's a certain thing they push about younger people. So it's getting them to be open to the fact that not only do people that come from other places in the world or have different backgrounds have a different view or a different way of approaching a topic, but so do people from different generations. There's that one. But the other thing that I know, it's been a while since I was working in large corporate, but I know when I was with Canadian Pacific, there was a huge offshoring push. So, so a lot of the junior roles were also, kind of sliced off and sent overseas, that kind of thing. So I think it sort of seems like the more the senior people were sort of controlling things from, sort of this location and that kind of thing. And I don't know how much offshoring is still pertaining over hiring people from our own regions, but I know that's something that definitely should be looked at. The organizations that are producing the developers, I'm not so familiar with these days, but you know, is there support from our community to like to bring companies in to kind of mix and mingle with the people that are coming into schools and seeing what they are doing, that they can go, aha, you know, like the light bulb goes on that says, oh, I see what they're doing and where they could fit in my organization.
Yeah, definitely. There are a few boot camps in the city. SAIT and Bow Valley also have really good programs. If you go looking, they're there. So our organization also manages YYC Dev and YYC JS, two of the community groups. And I find that once you start looking, there are actually a lot of different groups that just don't know how to market themselves. And so we're trying to see if we can pull all these various groups together. There's even a Calgary youth coding group that's like junior high students to university students. And it sounds like it's run by the University of Calgary students with some of the profs there. So I haven't chatted with them yet, but we're chatting with them at the end of the week to see how we can pull them into the more professional ecosystem, I guess, what for lack of a better word, so that we can get the students into that ecosystem before they start looking for a job.
That's pretty cool. We have a lot of hands up, a lot of conversations, so we'll keep this rolling for a bit, and then it might be more productive to get into breakout rooms, but we'll go Ross, Al, then Peter, then Gail. Ross, go ahead.
I actually had the question, Alan touched on it slightly, is just talking about culture within the technology workplaces, because a lot of the time it's talked about as a perception of, oh, we don't want junior teams because we want seasoned professional people, but how much of it is that generational perception that does impact hiring practices and perception and dynamics in workplaces, you find?
I haven't seen a lot of that, really. I think, well, I guess I'm the oldest person in my team, so if there's going to be any ageism, it's going to be towards me, which does happen because I don't really get the whole Zoomer talk thing. And so they're trying to teach me, but I don't know if I'm going to get there. I see my devs all laughing and because they totally get it. I haven't experienced that a lot. So I don't know if I'm really qualified to touch on it, since I'm one of the older people.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I just asked the question because I've been helping out with some of SAIT's corporate training courses on generations in the workplace. So I've been helping out a lot of small companies along the way with learning about diversity and bringing younger people in and that sort of transition planning. And that just really goes to what you're talking about with it being like, even within the code, like you want junior developers who have maybe been trained differently how to code and work on it, talking with senior developers. So if you have even a third party that comes into a company, that's transferable more easily than a whole bunch of seasoned people working in a language that not everybody understands.
Yeah, I'm gonna think about that one a little bit more. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. Lots happening in the chat too, but we'll go to Al.
Hey, good to see you, Serena. Or Serene, sorry. I got a couple points that I just want to quickly make. Is one is that because technology is changing so fast, the older, more experienced of a developer you are, the actually less in touch you are with what the current modern technologies are. So junior technologies or junior programmers are learning on the most recent technologies, and they're actually probably going to be more up to speed than a lot of the older senior programmers are. The second thing I wanted to mention was with regards to mentorship. You can hire a junior developer and not provide them any mentorship whatsoever because they have the industry. The computer software industry is completely unique in one way, and that's that everyone out there is willing to help you. There's all kinds of not job boards, but discussion boards where you can say, hey, I'm having this problem, here's the situation. And then a whole bunch of people from all over the world will tell you what's going on and how to fix your problem. Plus there's tons and tons of information out there. There's tutorials and courses and all kinds of stuff. So even if you don't have any other technical people in your company, you could still hire junior developers because they can go out and figure it out. So I just wanted to say that point.
think that's a really interesting point. I see senior developers as the ones who are setting up those guardrails that I talked about. So they are the ones setting up the processes to make sure that testing must always be in place, set up a deployment plan to make sure that stuff isn't broken when we send it to production, what the coding practices are, how things should be formatted. When pull requests are created, what do they need to look like? What standards do they need to adhere to? I also see them as helping out with things like data modeling. So there are a lot of non-technology specific skills that I see senior developers providing, and those are the things that I see them teaching to juniors.
Peter, you're up.
That would be my comment as well. Serene, nice to see you again. And I think that sometimes the old guard and they're not accepting of the juniors into their environment, haven't done all the guardrails and the systems and the processes. And so they know they've got a bit of squirrel code going on. And it doesn't lend itself to bringing in other people into the organization. So I think it's a big cautionary note to say, hey, just how extensible is the environment that you've built? Is it accommodating? And what happens if you lose a couple of those senior folks? And are you sitting there trying to unscramble the scrambled eggs at that point in time and setting yourself backwards? So as much as I love all of my senior dev friends, I also know there's a little bit of protectionism going on there. There it is.
Yeah, totally. I think that there's some squirrel code's a good way to put it. If you have a bunch of senior devs who've been on a project for a long time, they've written some really clever code that only they understand. Mm-hmm. And I tell my devs that code is a liability. It's not an asset. Code is something that you have to maintain. It needs to be really simple. If it's complicated, it's not because you're smart.
Yeah.
Smart, like good developers write simple code that's easy to understand and easy to maintain.
Mm-hmm. I see claps happening for that comment. We'll go Gail and then Heiko and Al. I know you have your hand up again, but I think we might head into breakouts so that we can have smaller discussions and everyone can have a voice. So we'll go Gail and then Heiko, and we'll do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Cool. So I really enjoyed the presentation and the passion, and certainly remember graduating and recognizing how hard it was to get that first job. And then after you get that first job, things are so much easier. So it's that gap, right, to that first job. So we're all volunteers at Technology Alberta. We actually got some funding because of COVID to help people get their first jobs. And so already we've helped over 100 people and 100 companies bring on students. An interesting thing is that our original funding was for youth. Now we have 2 pots of funding for young people and for people not so young, but 29 and under was our original funding. So some were students, some were not. We thought that the companies across Alberta, so we had Edmonton and Calgary companies, we thought that they would all choose the most experienced talent. We thought there'd be a whole bunch of 29-year-olds. But there were a lot of companies who recognized, especially at this time, that they have to step up for the students, or we'll lose them, or they'll lose their way. And so we actually found that it was 50% chose students, 50% chose the older ones. So I just want to say that there are people who have a heart for this. And so, it's probably, we need to convert more, but there's a strong pool. And I like your point about paying interns. And we have funding, Technology Alberta, I put the links there. We have funding so that companies can apply, and then we give the money to the companies to pay for the students or the older professionals. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Mentorship.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy speaking with people like you and people at Rainforest, because I find that just really fuels my passion, and I love it. I really enjoy it.
And there are other funding resources. I think someone had MyTax in the chat too, and there are more. So yeah, Gail's a great resource for that if anyone needs more info. Heiko, hit it.
I have nothing important to say other than I second everything Serene said, and specifically I'd like to call out Larry Schumlich again, who's also a mentor of mine, was big in the rainforest for a bit as well. But yeah, I second everything you said. That's all.
Well, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do here, thank you everyone for this incredibly engaged conversation, and Serene for being our role model within it. I am going to instigate some breakout rooms here, and so we can keep this conversation going. I know there's a lot of junior devs in this room, there always is, and you may be a little quieter as we heard from a lot of leaders just now, but please voice what you have to say in these breakout rooms and share your thoughts on the topic too. So I will open that up, and we'll probably have time for maybe 3 rounds of this. Someone made a comment to us that this feels like speed dating, and an element of it really should. This is our opportunity to meet and collide with people we've never otherwise would. So please take full advantage of that. And if you need more time with that person, that's the intention, that you continue the conversation through LinkedIn or email after the fact. So have fun, everybody. Community announcement. So thank you everybody for the engaged conversation. Everyone's frozen on my screen. I don't know if you can hear me, but anyway, Al had previously put in the chat about the Libby podcast, if you want to be a guest or a host, and we are hosting the first ever Libby Podcast Awards. It'll be a lot like the Oscars, so get dressed up and sit at your computer on November 14th, 16th?
16th.
16th at 4:30 p.m.
Awesome. So join us for that, and watch for a post about some People's Choice Awards that we'll be asking for your votes for, if it's not there. Other things happening is that Calgary Startup Week is just around the corner in November. So I'll throw a link in the chat for events happening there, or if you'd like to host an event for Startup Calgary Week, there will be contact information in the link I eventually post. And anybody else for announcements?
I'll jump in if nobody's going here. The Karen Judge is putting on the happiness event this starting on Friday and Saturday. So I'll get the link and post that into Slack. But that should be it's an online event this year. So you wanted to bring a bunch of people together at the Happiness Collaborative, but of course COVID has gotten in the way. So, but should be lots of fun. There's gifts and prizes and innovative ways to keep your brain happy and your family happy. So anyway, I'll get the link out there so that people can see how to join.
Awesome. Graham, you've got something in there you want to share?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bridget. So we're hosting in 2 weeks our annual Cyber Summit. It was going to be in Banff, but we had to pivot online, so we're doing it on the remote platform. And the theme is moving towards the quote unquote new normal, where we're kind of looking at how technology is going to evolve the workplace and the overall ecosystem following the COVID-19 pandemic. So there's information that can be found. I shared the link in the chat. The number one thing I want to preface is if cost is a barrier, reach out to me. I'm on the Slack channel. I'll share the link to it there because we do subsidize attendance for individuals who may not be able to afford the price point. So please let me know discreetly and I can absolutely share those codes. Thanks.
That's awesome. Thanks, Graham. I'm going to add another event from Harvest Builders in partnership with General Assembly, who is a new player in kind of the micro credentials education around all things tech. They're hosting a session with Harvest around effective communication. So that's in there. Good soft skills. And V.
Yeah, I've got one. I really believe that what Serena said about Alberta becoming a real power in the world with technology. So and it's going to happen around community building, community development. So there's an event tonight. You're all invited.
Awesome. Good. Glad to see you were steering that ship, V. That's great. The CMX communities are around the world, and important to have that kind of global perspective. So on
Is
that,
there a link in there for that?
yeah, I did just click on it, though I'm not looking.
Oh, okay.
Tiffany, welcome to the tech world. Glad you enjoyed the discussion. And yeah, and last week we had you help us in our breakout room. So thanks for coming. To anyone else who's just joined us today, thank you for coming. This is a representation of what happens every Wednesday at Lunch Without Lunch, but every week is different. So make sure to check back with us. We've got a few more founders coming. Next week, we're going to do a tour of Neo Financial, actually. So that'll be fun, as they're a very high growth company happening in across the prairies, really, Winnipeg and Calgary. So thank you all. We leave the room open if you wish to continue to chat. And Serene, many thanks. Daniel, many thanks for setting this up today. Have a great week.